Woman delivers friend's baby, discovers husband is the father. Hailey gently held her friend's newborn baby as she splashed the water over her skin. She was giving her her first bath. That was when she saw something that pulled her stomach into a tight knot. Her heart was pounding as she made the painful realization. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she ran out of the hospital, her hands covering her face. Nothing could ever have prepared her for the betrayal she felt. How could they? Hailey Custer was 28 years old and at the prime of her life. But in this time of her life, things were rapidly beginning to dramatically spiral out of control. Hailey and her husband lived in Wickenburg, Arizona, where they were raising their 3 beautiful children. She thought their lives were perfect. She didn't think things could get any better than they already were. She would soon discover that she's seeing things through rose-tinted glasses. Hailey didn't have an easy time growing up. She struggled a lot throughout her teens and early 20s. Her family was dysfunctional, with a lot of drama and a lot of struggles against addiction. Hailey herself struggled with addiction. But things took a turn for the better as soon as she met Travis Bowling, her husband. Even though her struggles with addiction were still around, things were still drastically improving because of Travis. It was all thanks to him. That's what she thought. Travis seemed like a stand-up guy to everyone on the outside looking in. He worked hard to provide for his family and he encouraged her to do the same. He was gentle and kind to every single person he encountered every day. He seemed to have it all figured out. Hailey thought that she was the luckiest girl in the world when he asked her to marry him. No one knew of all the secrets he was hiding from the rest of the world. Things changed when Hailey found out she was pregnant. Her pregnancy was the last push she needed to guide her into the right direction. She realized that she needed to regain full control of her life, and she did. She managed to put her struggles with addiction behind her. She got rid of her toxic friends and remained close to the few good ones. She didn't know that one woman, who we'll call Cindy for the purpose of this story, should have been excluded from the group of friends she deemed good. Hailey wasn't alone in her struggle with addiction. Cindy also struggled with it. But Cindy shared something with Hailey. She also wanted to try and make a better change. She wanted to change her life around and got help with a few things. They were the best of friends, but no one knew Cindy would do something unimaginable to Hailey. Hailey had gotten pregnant 3 times, and now with her little angels, she knew she lived a life that a lot of people would be jealous of. She had a doting partner and reliable friends. But what Hailey originally thought was a perfect life would end in something out of a horror movie. But when Cindy told her best friend that she was no pregnant, Hailey knew there was only one thing she could do. She would give her friend relief in difficult a time. The father had left and wasn't going to come back. She wasn't independent enough to look after either herself or her baby. Still trying to stave off the addiction as well. Hailey felt compassion for her friend. Hailey felt guilty because it was only with her husband that she had the strength to kick her addiction. She needed to help her friend all through her pregnancy. Hailey would look after her friend. She'd let her stay in the spare room. But she had no idea that Cindy was only playing at her heartstrings. With Hailey's help, Cindy managed to get clean. She knew her child needed a good life, better than her own. One person supported her even more than Hailey, her husband. Travis had a different reaction to what Hailey thought when she said Cindy would be moving in with them. He was dead set against it. He told her that the house was already full enough with 3 small kids and that they didn't have room for her. But with a 6-bedroom house, Hailey knew that was a lie. She did it anyway. As the weeks passed, she noticed an odd tension between them but thought nothing of it. At first, Travis kept distant from Cindy, briefly engaging with her whenever they had dinner together. His behavior was so rude that Hailey eventually pleaded with him to be nicer to her. After all, she was her best friend. Hailey was happy to see their relationship improve. It was all one big happy family, full of soul-crushing secrets. When Cindy's water broke, Hailey drove her to the hospital and stayed with her throughout her 9-hour labor. Hailey still maintains that the experience of being there for the birth of her best friend's daughter was one of the most beautiful moments of her life. Despite everything that went horribly wrong, I stepped into that father figure role. I was there for her every step of the way. Even in the hospital, I wore the daddy wristband. When she got her epidural, she laid on me. I actually gave the baby her first bath. But it was when she was bathing the baby that she noticed something that made her stomach drop. On the baby's neck was a small birthmark. A birth defect that Hailey had seen countless times before. It was an extra piece of cartilage that formed on the side of the baby's neck. Something that Hailey and her husband often referred to as the bowling bump. An unimaginable realization engulfed her. Hailey walked the baby back to Cindy in the hospital room. She looked pale and distressed. She handed the baby to Cindy and stared at her in heartbreaking silence as tears began to submerge her eyes. It seemed Cindy knew exactly what Hailey had discovered. She dropped her head and cast her eyes down to the floor. Without a word, Hailey left the room. She managed to get herself into the open fresh air before she burst into tears. Her heart and chest felt overwhelmed with searing pain. There were no words that were said, I just knew. For me, I was in a state of shock for a little bit. I walked outside when I first found out and just prayed, Hailey recalled. But she had to confirm her suspicions. From Cindy's reaction, Hailey felt sure that it was an admission of guilt. There was no doubt in her mind that the genetic birthmark she saw on her friend's baby was passed down to her by her husband. He had the exact same mark, as did 2 of their children. She went home and confronted her husband right away. What he said left her shocked. At first, he tried to outright deny it, but Hailey's intuition was just too strong. She knew deep in her very being that he was the father to that child. The more he denied it, the more devastating the situation became. How had things become like this? It was months later when he finally confessed. But that's not all he confessed to. Hailey also discovered that she wasn't the only one in their relationship who battled addiction. Travis also had an almost lifelong problem with addiction that he kept quiet from most people. Even as he encouraged Hailey to recover, he was going through the exact same thing but worse. He took stronger pills and he used it as an excuse for his wrongdoing. Hailey froze. She knew the turmoil and struggles that came with addiction. She knew it could blur your decision-making and take over your most basic moral codes, but was it really an excuse? Would she have ever done that to him when she was struggling? Her answer was quick. No. No, she would have never done that to him. There was no excuse for such vile behavior. She wanted revenge. Hailey was in tremendous pain. No one had hurt her like this before. Yet, it wasn't just one person, but 2. She dreamt of what she could do to have them experience this pain too, but in the end, she decided to go with a different approach. And her reaction to all of this was confusing to many. Hailey uploaded her story to TikTok where she gave a first-hand account of her perplexing reaction. After she made the heartbreaking discovery, she still invited her now ex-friend back to her house to recover. She went on to get a divorce from her husband, but they all lived together as a family for some time. Her explanation continues. Everything happens for a reason and I'm still friends with her today. I still love her, I forgive her, I just hope she can forgive herself. Everyone makes mistakes, Hailey explained on TikTok. She also opened up about the importance of forgiveness and love in these situations. There is no hate in my heart for either party. My ex-husband and I have 3 children together, so I have to co-parent with him. And at the end of the day, my now ex-best friend's daughter is my children's sister. So I don't hold any hate in my heart. But not everybody agreed with her philosophy and people online let her know.